We are starting session for today. Once again, I am delighted to see audience in such large participation. Before I start, I would request each and every one of you if you can just drop on comments on the text box your locations from where you have joined. It would help our team. We all are aware and we all have seen the word ESOPs in any of our LinkedIn scrolls or on our company's discussion or seeing people discussing on these topics. And I believe audience sitting here are aware about the terminology and how it operates and may have gone through in detail as well, like what is ESOPs, how it is beneficial for the organization and for us as an employee, right? But today in this session, we are going to highlight the five key areas or five factors which will make your policy not only a legal document, but a strong, evident document which will help the organization and you as an employer or employee to win over other qualitative aspects of the policy and its success matrices as well. So we see people have joined from Hyderabad, Delhi NCR, Indore, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Delhi. So all across India, we are seeing people have joined this. Once again, heartfelt thank you for all of you. Now, 85% of the companies have done some twist and tweaks in their policies or via amendments or via launching certain factors, which has helped them gaining certain edge over the other policies, right? So when the day or the moment we have decided to launch a ESOP scheme for our organization or we have started evaluating factors, we may all have gone through the certain legal and secretarial aspects of it. I'll quickly run what all these are. For example, we have to draft a ESOP policy or a ESOP scheme, right? A document. Once that document is ready, basis the internal management approval, we go and take board approvals via a board resolution. The same policy is then approved or vetted by your shareholders. After the policy is live, you are good to issue ESOPs or grant ESOPs to your employees. And within 30 days, you have to file MGT 14 form in ROC so that you are legally compliant to launch ESOPs. But what else? Is that enough? Will that serve the purpose or will that serve the area or the success matrices will be achieved by launching just a policy, right? So what are they? What does big companies have in common, right? If I would be happy if people can just drop a text, what do you think, like what does all those big brands, maybe Tata's, the Reliance, the TCS and other organization have in common which are enabling them to succeed over other? Because we all have understand and we all have learned somewhere like the biggest resource for any organization is your employees. But what is that thing which has made those organization a little bit different and create a uniqueness among the others, right? So any thoughts on that? What do you think, what can be those things and what are those factors? Yes, someone has commented the employee friendly policies. Yes, people are also writing transparency among the organization, right? So we all fight for talent and the best talent. Every organization is in that journey or in that fight, right? So we all want the best talent. How do they get them and how do we get them, right? If I, as an organization, I want to hire a CFO or a CXO or a CTO or someone at a very senior position, and I know from which brand I need to hire them, and I know from which competition I need to hire them, right? So is there anything in our mind? How can we get them, get the best talent? This is the biggest question and the challenge in mind, right? Moving ahead, solving this dilemma through ESOPs and through equity compensations. ESOP or stock option or equity is the need or of the hour, right? We understand by launching equity or by launching the stock option compensation, we it will help us decreasing the attrition rates, right? We'll have a great edge over like competition for hiring the right talent in our organization, or it creates a long term value in terms of many quantitative and qualitative factors both from the employer and employee perspective, right? But are we doing this effectively, or are we in the right path to get our goals aligned with our actions and mapped with our actions? So 97% of the HR leaders and 84% of the employees agree like if there is a compensation part in terms of equity in their CTC or in their perks or in their benefits, right? So they tend to become more loyal, or more the attrition is controlled there, or they tend to be retained for a longer period of time, right? So what are the multifold benefits of having that equity compensation in your plan for your employees? You will be able to retain your talent is simultaneously rewarded both in terms of monetary and non-monetary parts, right? And it gives the employee a avenue for creating wealth for them. Now, coming to the topic, five secrets of equity management. So, what are they? Right? How, when we are deciding or defining to launch a policy, or when we are creating a equity management policy, what are those factors which will help us in the long run, which will differentiate us from the other organization, and which will also help us in creating the best policy, which is not just flexible, which gives you no amendments in future, right? You will be able to cater the requirements of all sort of employees, all sort of different factors, which will help organization to have the highest and the most flexible policy, right? uh, so what are those, right? So I'll start. Before sharing that, I would love to know from the audience any thoughts on it. What can be those factors which will help the organization to launch an effective equity management policy? It can be anything. It can be a random guess. It can be a random thought. Okay, if this component is there, so we'll be able to make the policy much more flexible, or much more. Uh, any thoughts on that? Yes, the different vesting schedule is one, right? Choosing the right sort of combination. Okay, I'll start with the timing, right? The first secret will be the timing. So, what is our timing to launch the plan or launch the policy? Uh, Organizations are at different stages. Organizations are at different level. Maybe we are just launched our startup. Maybe we are 5 years old. Maybe we are 10 years old in the company, right? Our organization is that. Right? So our company stages and also like timing is the key factor. So maybe we have just launched the policy at the time when our organization is just started, our brand is just starting, right? So what are those factors? Okay, we are an early stage startup, so the percentages and the value is not that bothering to us, versus we need to create that kind of a confidence and that kind of a transparency. We need to share it with our employees. Okay, we have launched, and the owners and the founders, as we are ready to dilute. Okay, there's again a technical glitch in presentation. Meantime, the team is working on sharing this. Yeah, uh, we'll continue on that. Meantime, the screen gets shared. Versus early stage versus the mid stage or the late stage, or whether we are a listed or unlisted entity, right? So whether we are 10 employees organization, so what are those factors we should consider? If we are 50 to 100 employees company and we are at a mid stage, we are just does the growth stage? So what are those factors which we need to consider? And if we are a later stage companies like Zomato or Swiggy at this stage before IPO, what Swiggy is doing or what Paytm and Zomato has done before they went IPO, right? So what are those factors and what are those areas? So the policy deciding factors at different stages will be different basis at what stage and at what level we are launching this plan, right? For example, today delivery is a listed entity, but 10 years or 12 years back when they launched the policy, it was for altogether a different purpose. It was with the purpose of maybe hiring the best talent in the market. It was with the purpose of retaining their best talent in the company by just compensating them with form of a equity, right? So at that time, the exercise price, the other factor, the vesting conditions, the vesting period, which we'll discuss in detail, they can be compensated or they can be just ignored because they just want to provide it. Versus an organization like Tata, versus an organization like Reliance, if they launch it today or if they are planning to amend their policy today, so those factors will be very much different. They will have it from the point of view of a loyalty. They will have this from the point of view of how we can retain the best of the talents, and accordingly the factors, the key clauses, the policy parameters will accordingly switch, right? But having said that, no matter at what stage and what timing and at what level of your organization and policy is currently, it will always have that essence of grabbing the right time, right? So when we start, for example, a startup is just launched, they have 5 employees, they don't know about the valuation. uh, in case someone is finding any challenge in terms of the visibility and the screen sharing mode, be assured, after the session we will be sharing this deck along with those calculation and the allocation models as well, as so that you can use it basis your organization's practices and your own inputs, right? So currently it is all for reference purpose. So we will be sharing this deck, we will be sharing the allocation models as well as the calculators, wherein you will be free to provide any inputs in those and get the right answer in the calculation basis your organization's data, right? So first was the timing, to crack the right timing, and as per your stage and as per your aging of your plan, we have to decide those clauses, correct? The next will be deciding the right size of the pool, right? So now I keep on listening to founders or CHROs or the CFOs when we discuss on creating their policy for the very first time, right? So they've come up direct upfront question: what will be our pool? We have listened somewhere it will be 5%, we have listened somewhere it will be 10%, right? So whether we have to launch a 5% pool or whether we have to launch a 10% pool, correct? And this question must be there in your mind as well, right? Okay, what should be the pool size, whether it is 5%, 8%, 15%? We have read it somewhere like 10% is the pool. So I'll answer this in a different way. 5%, 10%, 8% is just an absolute number, right? So it cannot decide whether if I'm a early stage company, 5% is best for me. If I'm a late stage company, 10% is best for me. There are multiple other factors which will decide the pool size, correct? For example, I have 10 employees in my mind, and in future I will have another 10 employees in my mind for whom I will be launching this ESOP allocation plan. So the CTC of those employees, I'll consider what is their current CTC, what will be their expected CTC, right? So accordingly, and what is the valuation of my organization as on today? If the valuation of my organization is 100 CR and the people to whom I want to launch this ESOP, their CTC is 10 CR or 15 CR, right? So I will never be anywhere near to 5% or 6% of the pool. So going one by one, 5, 8, 10, or 15, there is no direct answer to that. When we have to decide, we have to sit it with the management, we have to sit with our plans and decide, okay, our organization's current value is hypothetically say 100 CR or 50 CR, whatever is the number in your case. So our organization's valuation is 100 CR. We have in mind 5 or 10 people's, right, whose current CTC is 3 CR, hypothetically. Now another 10 will be joining with a total CTC of 4.5 CR in next 1 year. So approximately current payout for those all eligible employees is 7.5 CR. So we will be launching this pool to map their CTC around that, right? So generally you have seen like ESOP allocations value to their CTC ratio is somewhere between 0.6 or 0.7x. In early stages, it can be 1.5x as well. In simple words, if my CTC is 50 lakhs, the ESOPs granted to me will be equivalent or somewhere near to that number. Like it can be 40 lakhs, it can be 60 lakhs, it can be 30 lakhs, depending on the valuation, depending on the status and size of my organization, and how liquid and how sound my business is, right? And at what value of ESOP that person is ready to join. So the pool size is not alone decided like, okay, we'll go ahead with 5% or 8%. We have to keep in mind what is my valuation, what can be my valuation in next 4 years. Because if I am giving ESOP worth rupees 10 lakh to any employee at a current valuation of 100 CR, if the valuation of organizations grows from 100 to 300, this 10 lakh worth of ESOPs will also increase to 30 lakh, right? The 3x or 4x multiplier will be there. So whether I am mapping this correctly with respect to their current CTC, or is there something else I need to do? And then you will come at a number which will help you in getting, okay, maybe we are currently good at 3%, and next year onwards we'll see it, okay, how we need to maybe amend it or change it or not, right? Or whether 5 or 10% is good or not, right? So stand alone. If anyone asks you, or if you are thinking to decide, okay, we'll create a policy and we'll create a 5% pool and that will suffice, because in my friend's company or in my previous company the pool size was 5%, right? So this is no formula for that. There can be other factors as well. We we have designed a 22 factors allocation model which is quantitative and qualitative. So you enter those quantitative and qualitative inputs in that model or the calculator, and you come up with the right number of the pool which your organization need to create, right? So there can be other factors as well, but starting young, we cannot only depend on what my friend's company is having the pool, what was the pool in my previous company, what was the pool which my friends or my consultant is recommending me. For example, I am discussing with my consultant or my CA firm and they are saying, okay, just go ahead with 5%. So this is a very absolute thing, right? We always have to measure it with the concept of relativity, right? Okay, whether it will resolve the purpose or not, right? So if the audience can on the text, if you can drop what was the percentage or the pool size that was in your mind before listening to this, or maybe which you have in general read out in the Google searches and all, right? This will help. Okay, because we have seen there is a number. I go on calls, maybe 15 calls in a week for these ESOP advisories and scheme designing, and everyone comes up. Shall we go ahead with the 10%? Because maybe somewhere the investor also has to create that pool. But we have to always keep in mind, okay, that 10% maybe fall a bit short or maybe a bit excess to what we need today, right? So there we should always consider in mind what will happen if the pool will be lower than our requirement of today's, or pool is much excess what we require. Maybe we require only 3% of pool, all right, and that 7% can be created for future, correct? So the receiving those responses, three responses I have received, three of out of three are 10%, right? So this is in general, right? Where if you search, even if in chat GPT you enter a prompt like what should be my pool size, it will tell you 10%. But ideally it is not. We have use cases, we have practical case studies where organization, after thinking to create a pool of 10%, they have ended up creating 3% only, because my valuation is huge and the people to whom I want to launch it, only 5 or 6 key peoples, their CTC was all in total 2 CR. So why should I create a pool of 50 CR today? I will create that pool when that requirement will be there, or when my Series A or Series B investor will ask me to keep a pool aside before I put in money, right? So we have to see it from the relativity concept rather than just absolute number. Okay, my friend is saying 5%, right? Moving ahead, we have discussed on timing, we have discussed on pool size, right? Any thought from any of the audiences, like what can be the third myth? I will say it, right? Yes, vesting schedule. This is the most common uh, query, you can say, or the most common doubt. Okay, in my friend's company or in my previous company, 25% annual vesting for 4 year was given, so we are also going ahead with that, right? So we have hired a CXO, we have hired an executive member, we have hired a CTO, we are giving them 1000 ESOPs at 25% annual vesting for next 4 years. After 3 months, we have hired a senior executive finance and an executive HR and a AM admin. We are giving them 25% annual vesting for next 4 years. Okay, my existing loyal employees who have been with us in the company for last 10 years, we want to give them as a loyalty ESOP or a loyalty reward in term of allocating certain ESOPs. We are giving them 500 ESOPs. Okay, 25% annual vesting for 4 years. How this is sounding? If we are listening to this in isolation, this may sound true, right? But have you compared ever? Have any one of us are comparing this? Okay, thank you so much. I think the presentation is also visible, right? So have we thought this? People at different level, people of different size, people at different impact and different importance, everyone is getting 4 year vesting schedule of 25% annual, whether it is the top management or the young hire or a loyalty bonus. Everyone is getting same kind of a vesting schedule, plain vanilla. There is no premium uh, feature or a no premium model for any premium or a key employee or a key managerial personnel, right? Will that work, right? So we come up suggesting organization at such level have, even if they are following a time-based vesting schedule. I'll just explain the different kind of vesting model as well. But even if you follow this kind of a vesting schedule where you have only linked it with the time, okay, you join me, you stay with me for 4 years, you will get it, no matter what was your performance, no matter whether it was linked to my organization's objectives or not, no matter whether our milestones have been achieved or not, no matter whether you have got only the lowest rating in all 5 years, you will get all your ESOPs vested. I may sound a little blunt here, but this is the use case. This was the trend which we have seen over evaluating more than 100 ESOP policies, right? But is that correct? The correct measure or the recommended measure should be, I will have a time-based vesting schedule, but that time and that percentage I will modulate basis the requirement and basis the impact and basis the seniority or a juniority of that person, right? I with no offense to any young employees or the junior employees. I'm just saying what is the premium which we are giving to the top management or the top personnel of our organization or the top resources. I'm saying or recommending, it's not a mandate. I'm just giving you some visualization or some scenarios. If I am hiring a CFO at Blue Dart, I am taking it from FedEx or UPS, right? It's a general example. Shall I give them ESOPs and say, okay, 4 years, 25% annual vesting? And then I hire in finance or HR team assistant manager or executive finance or executive HR from college or from a campus placement. I give them 100 or 10 ESOPs saying 25% 4 years, right? So we have to create that differentiation. So that is what we have. If, even in the time-based vesting schedule, we suggest or we recommend you to modulate that with the immediate vesting or a cliff vesting or a graded vesting. You can say front-loaded vesting or a bullet vesting, right? What is those? A 25% annual vesting for next 4 year is plain vanilla vesting, which initially it sounds good, but as we grow and as we will grow, this will sound as a problem creating for us, right? Because people do not have any premium benefits over the others. People with top management can have immediate vesting like 1 year. You join, you're granted ESOPs on 1st of April 2024. On 1st of April 2025, 100% of my ESOPs get vested. Yes, I may have certain lock-ins, I may have certain additional conditions which will restrict me to exercise or which will restrict me to stay in the company for next 4 years, but my options are vested. If my purpose is retaining the employees or retaining the employees for the next 4 or 5 years, I can have that purpose as well. I will use a deferred vesting model. Deferred vesting means it will be the period will be the 4 years, but at the year end one, 10% options will be vested. Year end two, 20% options will be vested. Year end three, 30% options will be vested. And at the final year, 40% balance option will be vested. So 10, 20, 30, 40. All becomes 100, but you have retained that employee for 4 years. And at the end of the 4 year, employee is still getting 100%, right? But in the initial stages, we are encouraging them to stay for longer period. Completely opposite or a flip side of it, to the top management or to the key people or to the old people who have already served us for 4 years or 5 years in the company, we can give them bullet vesting, which is just opposite of that. 40, 30, 20, 10, right? So this is one factor wherein even in the time based vesting, we can have multiple modulation and multiple flexibility is available, which should not restrict us. And how do you ensure this is happening? Your policy should be designed in such a way which allows you to have any kind of vesting schedule without even changing your policy. So go after this session, go and read your existing policy, whether in your policy the vesting schedule clause is mentioning 25% annual vesting for 4 years. That means you have a glitch there. There's a bottleneck. You cannot launch any other vesting schedule without the board approval or without amending it, the existing policy. Correct. Coming to the milestone based vesting schedule, at the milestone basis, irrespective of my tenure in the organization, I may join you as a CFO, I may join you as a CTO, and stay in the company for next 5 years doing nothing. Still, I'll get 100% of my options vested. Versus I join you, I have certain KRAs, I have certain OKRs. It is linked to organization milestones. It is linked to my personal OKRs or KRAs. And as soon as those KRAs are achieved, those objectives are achieved, my options are getting vested, right? Irrespective of the fact whether I have completed 4 years or not, whether it do you feel this is encouraging or not? Just put this policy or this model in your organization and visualize any of the senior hire you had in your organization, say any of the CX committee member. They joined you. Will you ask them to stay for 4 years and get your 100% options vested? Versus we have some OKRs, we need to make the top line 2x or the bottom line EBITDA more than 10%, or we have to improve our customer retention ratio to the customer success manager of more than 90%. The day we achieve this, your option 30% options will be vested. So we have linked it with milestones. So employee have that motivation to achieve that OKR or to achieve that milestone as early as possible, as efficient as possible, and get their options vested. So now, after 2021-22, post the COVID scenario, in the startups, in the listed entities, even in the young stage companies, people have put this provision of milestone based vesting in their on their policies, right? And you can also have a hybrid one. Okay, you have to give me 1,000 options on joining. You give me 500 options as a time-based vesting. It will keep on vesting as I complete years or tenure with your organization. But the balance 500 will get vested only on achievement of those milestones. And those milestones can be organizational, can be functional, can be departmental, or can be my personal OKRs. Do you find this will create more engagement and more successes in launching your plan and effectively administrating your plan versus just a plain vanilla vesting of 25% annual for 4 years? Doesn't matter what I am doing, whether I am leaving or not, whether I'm achieving or not, whether I'm performing or not. I stay in the company for 4 years, I'll get my options vested, right? So we discussed on the timing of your policy, when you should launch the policy, what is the right time or what is the trigger to launch your policy. We discussed on the pool size because that is the greatest of the myths I have always encountered on all of my discussions. I'm again saying a hypothetical number. If on a weekly basis, 15 discussions we are having on the ESOP scheme designing, 15, 12 or 13 out of 15 will say, okay, 10% or 5% pool we have listened somewhere, right? So the timing, the pool size, and your vesting schedule. These are key factors or key clauses on which we have to do a brainstorming before locking any clauses, because we are not in a rat race to copy paste a previous policy or a previously designed policy for some other organization, and which will also fit in best for our organization as well, right? So any policy, any structure, any mandate cannot be fit in for all the organization. Every organization have their own SOPs, own working model, own type of workforce, right? So that requires certain level of modulation as well. Now, fourth one is, we have done the best of the studies, we have launched the best of the policies in our company, and I am saying, or employees have asked me the ESOPs after discussing with the management, the HR and the finance team, or whosoever is the owner of ESOPs. We have launched it. We have given ESOPs to employees, right? And now we say our job is done. We have launched ESOPs. If someone asks us, do your organization have ESOPs? We will say yes. Someone say, do you have ESOPs as an employee from the organization? Our employee will say yes. Is that enough? Will that serve the purpose till infinity or till you achieve your purposes, right? So we have to see for what purpose we have launched it. Maybe retention, maybe hiring, maybe giving as a loyalty bonus, maybe a wealth creation, right? So are we able to measure that successes, or is our policy successful after 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year down the line? Is there any requirement to have certain level of modulation or changes or amendments in my policy, right? So how we would measure it? So I suggest it, you have to have a framework on a quantitative and a qualitative purposes, right? You can check whether your policy is working fine or not. I would say you should do a homework after this session, maybe during the weekend or maybe the next weekend, right? See what was the date of our policy launch and what was the date when we first grant ESOPs in our organization, maybe 2020, 22, 23, right? And then start measuring and then start checking how your attrition rates or retention rate has been for the people who have ESOPs and for the people who do not have ESOPs. Just do a small exercise, even on a small set of employees. Maybe if you have 100 ESOP holder, do it for 10 ESOP holders only. Check whether over the last 2 or 3 years you are able to reduce your retention, reduce your attrition or increase the retention or not, or compare it with the people who have ESOPs and the people who do not have ESOPs. Correct? And then see if people who have ESOPs, they are still leaving the company. So please check one more level. This can be a manual exercise, but I'm just saying it will give you the highest level of comfort as a HR, as a functional head, as a enabler of this ESOP function in your organization. Just do another level of check. Check people who had ESOPs and they have also left, right? Whether they had 100% vesting of their options or they left in between the vesting period. Maybe only 20% was vested, maybe only 50% was vested, and still they left. And then you will come to know out of 100 ESOP holders, 60 people have left with 0% vesting. That means 60% of the ESOP holder doesn't bother and doesn't take into consideration those ESOPs, but they evaluated the offer from the other organization and left the company, right? So this will give a eye opener for us. Okay, what should we do in the vesting schedule as well as in the employee communication and transparency as well, right? How my employees will bother about the stock options which they have when they were leaving and when they were putting the papers, ha- whether they have evaluated their existing CTC plus value of ESOPs and then compared it with the new company's offer, or whether it was just a apple to apple CTC to CTC comparison and they left and they didn't even know on the date of leaving they had 12 lakh or 15 lakh or 20 lakh worth of ESOPs, which they never overturned, or which no one told them after giving them, right? So if this exercise we all can do, we will today will be by the next 3 4 hours by 7 p.m. will be able to know whether we have launched a successful policy or not, or whether whatever policy we have launched is that working fine for our employees or not, right? Employees can check at the price on which it was granted to me and the price which today it is, right? Whether there is any growth. For example, option was given to me in 2020. At that time, my ESOP's worth was 10 lakh rupees. Today, that 10 lakh has become 30, 40, or 20, 25, or it is still 10 or 12 only, right? So, 4 years back, my CTC was different. So, I was given 10 lakh worth of ESOPs. Today, my CTC is different, but my stock price or stock valuation is still 10 lakh. It has not moved that multiplier of 2x or 3x, what I was expecting. So that is again a quantitative success metric check for you, right? And whether I as an employee or you as an employer, you can see like whether your employees are able to create wealth. When you see news in the market of Zomato, of Paytm, of Freshworks, of Swiggy, of another or multiple other startups, right? People from Swiggy has made like 2,250 cr wealth from ESOPs only, right? And 100 people got millionaire at the launch of Paytm's IPO, whatever it is, example, right? So this will give us, okay, as a founder, as a enabler of ESOPs in my organization, I launched it 5 years back. Today, I can proudly say, okay, my employees stayed with me, trusted on our ESOP plan, and they have created wealth, right? My attrition has controlled because my purpose was retention. If I have hired some competitive employees or employees from my competition, they have stayed with me over the next for the past 5 years, right? And this is a simple exercise we can do in next, I think, only in a half an hour. And then there are some qualitative metrics as well. We can see like after the launch of ESOPs or any stock option policy, how your employee NPS or engagement level in the company is moving or not. What kind of a employees' behavior and the participation and the transparency and their feedback is towards the company and the communication, right? It is not, the success cannot be delivered or achieved or measured by just launching the ESOPs. It is a continuous exercise. As an employer, as a founder, as an enabler, I need to ensure my each and every ESOP holder, stock option holder, know what is ESOPs, know what is my vesting schedule, know how can they generate maximum wealth. They should know how can they save maximum tax so their net in hand is maximum. People are also believing in a myth that okay, ESOPs are taxed double time, 2 times, right? So I am receiving ESOP of 10,000 rupees by paying only 100 rupees. So 9,900 gain, I am paying tax again at the time of selling the ESOPs. I am paying tax. So we as a owner, we as a founders, we as an enabler, we need to ensure that myth is dissolved, or that myth is broken, right? By providing them the right source of awareness, the right kind of education material, or by having those organization have started doing those town halls, right? What business is doing. But I always suggest and I always discuss with the founders, right? We should always conduct a ESOP town hall where we can communicate to all the ESOP holders how our ESOPs has worked over the last 6 months or the last 3 months, and what is the future possibilities, how you as an employees can get the maximum out of it, right? In case 50 out of 100 ESOP holders have any kind of a myth, any kind of a doubt, any kind of a query in their mind, that get resolved then and there, then definitely I can vet, I can vouch, and I can guarantee and ensure you your ESOP will definitely be successful, no matter how your policy has been designed, no matter at what price you have given ESOPs, right? So we have discussed on all 4 areas of the successful or best factors to decide to look into before finalizing our policy, or even if we have a policy in place, we can go and check whether the timing was correct or can we make a timing changes right now, whether the vesting schedule or type of vesting which we are giving that is up to the industry standard or to the best practices of the market, whether the pool which we have created is short or excess, right? Are we having a successful policy or not? Whether it has helped organization over the last couple of years or 4 years or not, right? So these are the things we should do rather than just assigning it to some external consultant, asking them, yeah, our organization has decided to go ESOPs. We don't know anything about ESOPs. Please help us. Without saying a thing, I'm giving you a practical example. That exercise will end up, they'll give you a ESOP policy, which is already a policy of some other organization by changing the names and the clauses, and you will enter the number of ESOPs, enter the percentages of equity, and say my policy is live. But we have not touched base the factors. What will happen if my employee will leave? What will happen in case of a termination? How much time I will give to my employee when they leave the company, right? If they are terminated, what will happen to their policies? What will be the lock-in? What if they join competition back? They worked with Zomato for 5 years. Now they are joining Swiggy by taking all the trade secrets, right? So is there any special clauses restricting those activities or no? So these are certain eye openers, I will say, or some certain factors which we have to evaluate. And even if we have already designed a policy or already have a policy in place, we should go and check these clauses. Just do a control F and type these factors. You will get your answer. Not more than 30 minutes you will going to spend on it. Now, when the policy, the aging, everything becomes so old, right? How they are able to manage, how they are able to get measure these success matrices, how they are able to get this done. Okay, whether my what kind of vesting schedule I am having, who are the employees who left the company even after having ESOPs. Maybe my pool was staying idle for 4 years. I created a pool of 1 lakh options. I granted only 10,000 options over the last 4 years. Still 90,000 options are staying idle in my ESOP pool, right? So what should I do with that? Shall I reduce the pool size to give the more equity to my investors or founders, right? So there are certain changes. So manual management was a thing of past, and in history people were managing it because out of 100 only 3 companies used to have ESOPs, and out of 1,000 employees only 2 or 3 employees used to be granted ESOPs. But the things have changed now. You go to any startup event, you go to any industry events, you discuss 100 accounts or 100 customers there. 90 out of 100 people are having either ESOPs or they are either planning to launch ESOPs. The purpose can be different, right? And not only for the top 3 or 4 employees. If they have 300 employees, the ESOP is with around 100 or 80 employees. If there are 1,000 employees in organizations like a unicorn startup and all, almost 500, 600 people are having ESOPs. So how critical it is to manage everything on Excel. So people have gone from manual management to automated platforms, digital platform, which will help not only in just seeing the reports and all, but right from the creating the policy to having the right sort of combination as per your clauses, give the command to your portal. The platform will automatically make grants to your employees. Those grants will, you also have to create a digital, a grant letter. The portal will help you to have those digitally grant letter created basis your formats and all. Even you are launching ESOP for 100 employees at a time, all those 100 employees should receive the digital grant letter immediately. If you launch ESOPs at 3:45 p.m., by 3:50 p.m., all your 100 employees should receive digital grant letters. And if they read all the terms and conditions, the numbers, the matrices, and the vesting schedule, employees are able to digitally sign it and give their acceptance to, right? No need of manual follow-ups, no need to call the employees and ask them to submit the signed grant letter to the management or the HR team, right? So creating your pools, creating the policies, granting, once the options are vested, basis whatever vesting schedule you have followed, even if it was a manual vesting schedule like ad hoc, no frequency, no percentages, whenever the company decided they got vested, right? So automated grant, automated vesting. Then when, as per your policy and as per the company's decision, whenever the exercise period is open, they should be able to exercise whatever eligible number of options are there. Employees should know what is my tax liability, what is my cash outflow. I need to pay certain exercise price. I need to pay certain taxes, right? So whether I am good to exercise 500 options today, or I am good to exercise 100 options today, right? So employees should have that visibility on a real time basis. Even if they have to exercise in the month of December, employee can plan from the month of July, what is my maximum cash outflow, so what is the amount that I should be ready with, right? For exercising that. Even at the time of liquidation, everything should be digitally managed on a real-time basis. The employer, the administrator should have all the compliances, all the reports, all the matrices updated on a real-time basis through a dashboard. They just log in, and your management is asking what is the balance pool. You just log in and say, okay, 9,90,000 options are still left in the pool. How many options are vested? You just log in and say, okay, 20,000 options are vested out of 50,000. If your auditor asks you, okay, give me the signed grant letters of these 50, sample 50 employees from the annual 500 grants, you just give them the auditor access and say, okay, just enter the employee code or just enter the employee name and download the signed grant letter. I need not to give it separately, right? Any board approvals, any management approval, any shareholder approval, whatever the auditor doing the company secretary or the secretarial audit needs, just have the visibility through the platform, right? So it is just not only launching a policy, but launching an effective policy by checking all the trigger points, all the factors which will help you in standing out from the market, from the general practices, to have those unique practices, right? Your organization's demand is different, your employer demands is different. So whether your policy is meeting their demands or not, and once it is, the whole of exercise is done, are we able to measure it whether we have done the right exercise or not? And if not, what are the corrective actions we can take today, so that after 2 years or after 1.5 years, this is not creating a trouble for us or our employees or for those administration purposes, right? When we will go IPO, there will be a lot of documents, lot of compliances, the due diligence or the IPO team will ask us, and we should be ready with that, right? So these all are the steps. Now I am happy to take any query, any doubt over these steps or over these factors. I was seeing the comments as well during the session, right? I apologize for the delay of that 1.5 minute lag, where due to some technical glitch, our screen was not visible. Be assured, we will be sharing you this detailed deck along with those calculators or the models, wherein you can do the analysis by entering your own inputs and then seeing whether your policy is working or not, right? Whether it was up to the mark or not. I am open to take any query. If you have any doubt, just write here on the comment box or the chat box, and we'll be happy to answer that. There is a question, the right size of the pool, and do you also help in designing the ESOP schemes? Yes, we do. For that, we can connect separately. I will try to answer questions related to the policy designing and all. Our team will get in touch for that ESOP designing purposes. Yes, the pool size should not only be decided by seeing just a 5% or 10% of number in absolute, but it should always be some relation to your valuation, to your budget of the people to whom you are planning to launch. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining the session, and thank you for staying there till the session ends. I respect your time and appreciate your time. Thank you once again. Thank you for joining.